Hello and welcome to another episode of Women of Color in Business. Today, we are joined by Dr. Kimberly Walker. I'm going to give her the opportunity to introduce to you guys what her business is and what she does. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. My business is called Dr. Walker Coaching and Consulting, and I am a psychiatrist. I also am a coach. And I guess I really got into coaching because I got burned out in 2021 during the height of the COVID pandemic, practicing psychiatry full time. It took a toll, and I knew I needed to make a shift. And I came across Rapid Transformational Therapy, or RTT, and it is a really fascinating way of working with folks. And I decided to use that method in my coaching to help people. So I can talk about that later, but that's my introduction.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Burnout, you said, tell us a little bit about what did that burnout feel like for you?
Okay. Well, so, you know, March 2020, everything shut down.
Yes.
And so I went from being in an office to doing everything from home. So I'm sitting in my office in front of my iPad seeing patients in my psychiatry practice day after day, feeling somewhat hopeless
Mm,
because every day people were miserable. I dealt with a lot of depression, anxiety, and suicidal feelings. So that's
hmm
kind of what I was bombarded with. So I was feeling somewhat hopeless.
uh-huh.
I was feeling really tired. I mean,
Mm,
just I felt mentally tired, sluggish, and I always worked too hard anyway.
uh,
So I think the fact that I was overworking combined with the conditions set up during COVID just really made me hit a wall, just
got
compassion
you.
fatigue.
Got you.
That's how it felt for me.
And how long had you been a therapist prior to?
So I've been a psychiatrist more than 30 years.
Okay.
So it's, you know, 2020, still, a good 25 years or more in.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense because during that time, the everyone was going through, I can imagine what the stories are, the patient issues that therapists had to deal with
Hmm.
in a situation where they themselves were going through the same, type of experience. So
Hmm.
it had to be kind of overwhelming. So
Indeed.
from that, you said you found, having been a therapist for 20 years, did you have your private practice that long, or how did you start out in therapy?
So, I mean, starting out, many years ago, I worked in Philadelphia and I was in different agencies, but I
Okay.
came to Maryland, where I live, in 2011, and I worked for a hospital outpatient practice. I've always had, though, a small private practice.
Okay.
And during COVID, I was the director of an outpatient mental health clinic, and I had my private practice. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, in having your private practice and your experience with burnt down and deciding to shift, tell us a little bit about that process from experiencing your burnout to finding RTT and where that journey has taken you thus far.
Sure. So, when I hit this wall and had this compassion fatigue, I was trying to figure out, was I going to really be able to continue to be a psychiatrist? I mean, it was really that bad.
Mm,
So I ended up taking an online class called Change, taught by a yoga teacher. And she exposed us to lots of topics, some of which I had some knowledge of, some of which I didn't know much about. So, meditation, mindset, and one of the assignments was to research some thought leaders. And one of the people on the list was Marissa Peer. and Marissa Peer is the founder of RTT. So, in researching her, I was watching the work that she was doing on YouTube, watching some of the sessions. And so, Rapid Transformational Therapy uses targeted hypnotherapy to get to the root cause of an issue. And what is powerful about hypnosis is that it really partners with the subconscious mind.
Mm,
And that's the part of us that's more emotional. And actually, a lot of what we do is really kind of dictated by the subconscious mind, but we're not necessarily aware of it.
mm,
Some of the thought patterns, some of the behavior patterns. So watching her do this work and watching these amazing transformations that would occur made me feel like I wanted to do this. I thought this would help my patients. And so I decided to get certified in it. And during COVID, everything was online. So it was a virtual, very rigorous process. So
mm.
in getting certified, I was getting these RTT sessions myself.
Okay.
So lo and behold, these limiting beliefs were, I was becoming aware of these limiting beliefs that I did not know that I had. And it
Mm,
was very, very powerful experiencing it myself.
mhm,
So one example was I grew up I'm from Philadelphia, but I grew up in the mostly white suburbs about an hour outside of Philadelphia. And one of the scenes that I reviewed during hypnosis was sitting in my bedroom. I'm about 8 or 9, and I am realizing that nobody thinks I'm beautiful. So
mm,
my Black beauty was not celebrated where I was living.
uh-huh,
And I had good friends, I had a good life, but there was still this feeling of not being enough. So that is the meaning that I kind of took in from that. There was something about me that was not enough. So it was surprising to make for this revelation to occur because no one could have ever told me that I didn't feel like I was enough because I was successful and I had a good life.
uh-huh,
But that taught me that there are things that we believe from experiences that we have had that truly can affect us. And I think feeling like I wasn't enough probably led to overworking.
mm,
And I've always worked really hard, but I was working too hard. And I would have gotten burned out, I think, even had COVID not come about because I just couldn't sustain the pace that I was working. So
mm,
I thought this was powerful. This is something that I wanted to really bring to people. So I do use it in my practice, but I really wanted to use it in a coaching capacity. And I really like to work with women of color who are, you know, high achieving, whether they're professional, whether they're in business, but we tend to work too hard and there may be sometimes there's burnout. Sometimes the experiences we have dealt with coming up in the systemic oppression has really deposited some junk
right,
that we aren't aware of, but we are reacting to. So that's
right.
how I started this coaching practice.
Okay, very interesting. I love that you work with women of color who are high performing, whether it's professional or business wise.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times people on the outside looking at a person, seeing them successful at what they do, and even being like you said, overworking, like they don't see it as there's an issue there, or there's a limiting belief there. There's
Hmm.
something there that
Hmm.
could utilize the benefit of therapy to help that person figure out why they're doing what they're doing. Right.
Hmm. Right.
Sometimes we don't understand that and it's not really supported in today's culture. Today's culture, I think is a mix though. Today's culture, you have a mix of that grind culture, like,
Hmm.
don't stop, just, you know, do it till you drop, basically.
Hmm.
Um, But I do see it coming around to more of a self-care, self-nurturing, slow down, pay attention to how you feel.
Hmm.
Um, Even like somatic yoga, somatic, body awareness.
Hmm.
I do see that part growing. So in your profession, how have you seen your profession change, let's say in the last 5 to 10 years in regards to these type of issues?
Well, I think as the stigma of mental health issues has decreased a lot. Athletes are talking about it, celebrities are talking about it.
Hmm.
There has been a greater acceptance of getting help,
Okay.
whether that is therapy, whether that is, if we're dealing with anxiety and depression, if we need therapy and medication. So, with respect to the psychiatry practice, there is a greater acceptance of getting the help. Now, there are shortages in terms of getting the help, but at least
Right.
folks are more, in many cultures, are
Hmm.
more likely to want to get the help. With respect to coaching, my understanding is, I mean, I've only been in the coaching space a couple years, and I understand that it's really changed a lot. But one thing that I like about the RTT is that because we are dealing with that subconscious mind, in contrast to the conscious mind, the logical mind,
Uh-huh.
which is, that is the mind that we're kind of dealing with from day to day, that's kind of in charge. And that part of the mind is trying to keep us safe. It is trying to keep us alive. So threat assessment, looking for what seems to be danger, and change feels dangerous,
Hmm.
even if it's positive change. So
Hmm.
that logical mind kind of puts up resistance, which can be harder to kind of break through, which is why a lot of talk therapies can take so long because every week coming up against that resistance. And
Hmm.
so that's one thing that I love about RTT is that you get in there, the subconscious mind is showing us this is what the issue is. So it's much more efficient in dealing with issues. Hmm.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I know a lot of women that I talk to when they're building a business, they get to a place where they can feel like um, one of two things. Either they feel like they're stuck, like they don't understand why they can't go any further, or they've achieved a goal and it doesn't feel gratifying. And they can't figure
Hmm.
out why because all the time they put into achieving that goal,
Hmm.
along the way, they told themselves, when I get there, when I get that, then I feel complete. Then,
Right,
I know it's going to be wonderful. But they
right.
got there, they achieved that, and it's kind of like, okay, it doesn't feel like I thought it would. So they set another goal. So, looking at those two aspects, would that be something that a limiting belief could be the source of?
Especially the latter example you gave, I found myself thinking, it is possible that possible not feeling enough,
Uh-huh.
and that can cause the drive to really want to be successful, and we were taught, you got to be twice as good. Just put your
Right.
head down and get it done. So I think feeling like you're not enough can definitely cause that drive, that overdrive,
Uh-huh.
but it's not satisfying once you get it.
Right.
Certainly. Certainly. Hmm.
And the thing that I find interesting is that people looking in on the outside, what they see is a very successful person, right? They see this person has, like you said, the drive, they make a plan, they reach their goal, they attain it, and they keep going, and they just look like a superwoman.
Hmm.
But without a clue that that person is really not content, right?
Hmm.
It seems impossible to think that they're not content with all they have achieved.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when you talk about being an overachiever, because you don't never feel like you're quite enough. I
Mhm.
guess the question is, does someone who has that feeling of not enoughness, who keeps striving, do they ever reach a point where they're going to be satisfied, or uh, is it an issue that they need to get help with clearing up?
So, I mean, that's a good question. I think that I can't speak for everybody, but I think that if underneath there is this belief that one is not enough, I think without resolving that, it is probably going to be difficult to truly feel satisfied. But what's tricky about it is that you don't know it's there.
Mhm.
So I
Right,
think that if there are behaviors that you continue to kind of cope with, you may have tried different ways of dealing with it, but you still find yourself coming up against it, that may be good evidence that there is a limiting belief, you know. And you mentioned feeling stuck,
right.
uh, and that, I mean, there are many reasons why one might feel stuck, but um, it may be feeling like you're not enough. But it's interesting. Sometimes childhood experiences can lead to certain beliefs. I had a client who she procrastinated a lot when
Mm,
she had to turn in assignments. She almost felt like a paralysis. It was a physical feeling, very uncomfortable. So she would turn it in at the last minute because didn't want to fail, but she was never happy with the result because she didn't take the time to do it completely. So in the RTT session, what was revealed in the scenes was she had some history of trauma. And the belief that she took away was that she kind of had to stay small, had to stay still to fly under the radar and to be safe from the trauma. So, although she was a grown woman and in a safe situation, that belief was still playing out in her life, unbeknownst to her.
mm,
So, when we were able to do the work in RTT, she was able to understand that belief was no longer relevant for her. And we do a lot of different techniques to help to refute and resolve the limiting belief. And a part of it is also making a transformation recording with the positive suggestions that come out of the session. And the client listens to that recording daily, hopefully, for at least 21 days. And that helps to rewire the thinking and helps to have those positive suggestions really settle in to make it a part of your belief system. So,
mm.
yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm,
What that brings to mind for me is sometimes, we see people or we know people and we feel like they have so much potential, or
mhm,
or they're really talented. They could be greatly
mhm,
creative, but,
mhm,
and then we judge that they're not applying that and we don't understand why, right? We think, well, if I had that talent,
mhm.
I would be doing X, Y, Z,
Right.
and they can't explain why. So
Mhm,
it's not like they want it to be so-called wasted or not
right.
utilized. It's like they can't figure out why
Mhm,
they keep repeating the same pattern of, like you
mhm,
said, someone who procrastinates. So someone who gets this great opportunity, but
mhm,
they have this habit of procrastination. So what they deliver is not really their best. And they
mhm.
can't understand, well, why did it almost feels like self-sabotage. Sometimes
And
we
that's
would
what I was going to
label it
say.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Why did I
Yep.
sabotage myself in that,
Hmm.
area, and
Hmm.
not thinking that it leads back to a belief that's stuck in your subconscious that's controlling what you do. That is just
Hmm.
so interesting to me. And I hope our
Hmm.
audience are connecting those dots, that it's a belief that's not front of mind. So it's not like you are aware of it. It's not out in the
Hmm.
open. It's in your subconscious but it is controlling how you behave and what you do. And if you are, always procrastinating, or if you are overworking because you're trying to make up for something or catch up to being worthy enough, it
Hmm.
displays itself in your behavior,
Hmm.
but you can't connect to what caused it, what's the basis of it is,
Hmm.
what value you have inside of you that's creating this, outward expression. I've
Hmm.
heard that when we are up to age 7, that we basically have no filter in our learning process. So whatever goes in, we take it as the truth.
Hmm.
So if someone, like you said something to you or to a person that made them feel like they were not beautiful,
Hmm.
they don't have the ability to think about that critically and say, well, that's just their opinion. They take it as, okay, that's true. I'm not beautiful. So to just imagine all the messages we must receive in those first 7 years, and if we take all those messages to be true,
Hmm.
and then we get to the stage where we can think critically, and we can control our logic, and we grow up, but still as adults, that 7 year period, some of those messages are still stuck in there. And that's what we're acting out.
Right.
And that's what
Right.
we can't explain. So
Hmm.
you're saying that your process, the process that you're engaged in, the RTT, is able to, through hypnotherapy, able to take us back and clear up what that might be for us so that we
Hmm.
can connect
Yes.
the dots and realize, oh, this is why I do X, Y, Z.
Hmm. This is why I believed this, and then the RTT allows you to say, okay, this is no longer relevant for me, and you can resolve it and then reinforce the real beliefs, the positive suggestions. Yes. Hmm.
So what is the struggle, or can you describe for us the process of why, on a conscious level, we're not in touch with that concept or whatever that issue is? Why is it that we could think, I know I should be doing A, B, and C, but we're still controlled not to?
Hmm. Well, I mean, logic, the conscious mind uses logic. And so you can logically say to yourself, I know that I am talented. I know that I have education, I have certification, so I should be successful. So logic, which is what a lot of the therapies use, um, logic can give you the information, but if you still deep down feel a certain way, the logic doesn't work. I mean, I've done cognitive behavioral therapy with clients and patients, trying to help them look at maybe distorted thought patterns that they have, like all or nothing thinking, for instance.
Ah, okay.
And so the premise is you look at that thought pattern and you find more adaptive ways of thinking. And so cognitive behavioral therapy can be really powerful. However, I've had some folks that say, you know what? I know logically this behavior, this thought is not rational, but it still feels this way. And that to me means there is some limiting belief. So once you're able to get at it through hypnotherapy, that's one way to get at those some of those things. You are then able to really unlock it and let it go. Yes.
Okay.
So,
So
mhm.
it may be a combination of solutions, or it may be
Yes.
stages of solutions. So it's not just one right answer all the time. You
Mhm.
kind of
Right.
work through
Right.
and get
Mhm.
to what the right answer is.
Yes. Hmm.
What have you seen to be the most prevalent struggle for high achieving women?
I think that a common limiting belief is feeling like we're not enough. And growing up Black in America, I mean,
Yeah,
we have been bombarded by messages that were not enough.
right.
So that is a common one. Another one is that's not available to me. And of course,
Mm,
if you've dealt with uh, prejudice, if you've dealt with being excluded, systemic oppression, purposefully makes things not available. So that is another limiting belief that I see. And another one is I'm different and I can't connect. And I think that is actually one that I think most human beings, if not all, at some time you feel like you don't connect. You feel
mhm.
different from other people in some aspect. So in that way, it's actually everybody feels that way at some point.
Got it.
So that actually doesn't mean, everybody feels that way. So it's kind of a unifying thing. But when you feel that way, when you believe that, it does make it difficult to maybe make certain moves, to maybe speak
Got it.
up.
Right.
But again, if you don't know that's what's happening, it can be very frustrating when you can't achieve what you want to achieve.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
So when we look at the different types of therapy, you've spoken about talk therapy, cognitive treatment,
Mhm.
RTT.
Mhm.
Um, is talk therapy usually a longer process than RTT, or does it vary or
So, and when I use talk therapy, I'm using a broad term. So there are different kinds of therapies that are more, verbal, where you're talking about things. There's
right?
insight oriented. There's and now I'm going to blank. So there are different methods of talking, and
Got it.
cognitive behavioral therapy is still kind of a talk therapy.
Okay.
They do tend to take longer because you are working with the conscious mind.
Uh,
Rapid Transformational Therapy, or RTT, tends to be a much faster process. It's just more efficient because you're getting to the heart of the matter and you are resolving things on a deeper level.
mhm,
Excuse me.
mhm,
I mean, some other therapies that can deal with trauma, like EMDR. You mentioned some, somatic,
mhm.
somatic treatments. So there are other ways of kind of dealing with things on a deeper level. But I highly recommend RTT.
Okay.
I think it's amazing. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So we talked about some of the most prevalent things you see. It's the not enoughness.
Hmm.
I don't connect. I'm different. I don't relate. This is not for me. Um, so when we're in a situation where we find ourselves running into those thoughts or those feelings often, is that usually a signal or a sign that therapy would be very helpful for us?
I mean, I certainly think so. I think that if you are, continuing to kind of battle dealing with these uncomfortable feelings, and of course, it all depends on how much distress it's going to cause you. But I do recommend getting some sort of support, getting some sort of help to help deal with these feelings. Hmm.
Got it. Now, what about this? I've been hearing a lot lately, and we all have about imposter syndrome. Where does that fall into this process?
So imposter syndrome, that is kind of the belief that you are not. Um, Let me just see how I can describe it. So many of us get thrust into certain situations, okay?
Mm,
And we may actually be very qualified for what we're doing, but there is this feeling inside that we're not qualified or that we're faking it, okay?
ah,
And I think that
hmm,
nobody is born knowing how to do everything. So
right.
I think whenever you try something new, You are not going to have it all together. But I think sometimes the idea that you are not qualified or or you're faking it, I think that can certainly come from some limiting beliefs, you know,
Mm,
like not being enough. That can be a cause. I think that imposter syndrome can definitely be battled with really using your mind to think about, okay, what is it that I'm trying to do? What qualifications do I have? What talents do I have? You know, you don't necessarily need a piece of paper or a certification to
hmm
be able to do what you've got to do. So I think it's a matter of really looking at what's inside and maybe separating that from what are people telling you? What is the system telling you that you
hmm
need? Because
hmm
many of us are well equipped to do what it is we need to do, but we can get messages from the system that we are not enough, that we don't know what we're doing. So it definitely takes some introspection.
Okay, okay. Have you ever found an instance or had a patient or experience with someone where they were they were performing at a very high level, but they still felt like they were not enough, like they were not capable, but yet everything they did said the opposite? And what was that process like to help that person?
So I've definitely worked with folks who are very high performing, very talented, but there is this feeling inside, or they have a tendency to kind of play down their accomplishments, or
Mm,
um, they don't actually say it was just luck, but you can tell that they aren't able to truly appreciate the talent that they have, the value that they have. And I mean, the person I'm thinking about in general was she did have a limiting belief of not being enough, and that came from certain experiences she had when she was, as a child being
uh-huh.
raised.
hmm
But what's interesting is that you don't even necessarily have to have any trauma in your background. Something as simple as maybe somebody speaking to you harshly when you're a child. You know, they
hmm
might not be yelling at you, they might not be cussing at you, but just the fact that maybe someone was speaking a little harshly, the child can take in, ooh, I'm bad,
mm
or I made a mistake. I did something wrong. And that can serve to be a bit of a barrier in terms of what they are doing in their adult life. They may shrink back, they may hold back. So it can be something really very small
Got
that
it.
can lead to some of these behaviors.
Got it. So, and does
Mhm.
therapy lead that person to um, going back to that instance to discover what caused it, or how does that work?
So, I mean, so there are different kinds of therapies.
hmm
So I do the rapid transformational therapy. So we decide on what is the issue that the person wants to work on. That is the first step. So
hmm
if someone says, I realize that I hold back, or someone may say, I have to do public speaking and it terrifies me. I don't want to be out there. I don't want to be seen. So that might be the question that we start with. Why does so and so fear public speaking? Why does
hmm
so and so not want to be seen?
hmm
And then what happens in hypnosis is scenes come up. So the client reviews scenes from their past, and then we are able to, I help the client to make meaning of the scenes, help them to identify what are these limiting beliefs that have been taken uh, in their life. And it's typically in childhood. It's not always, but typically these beliefs are taken in childhood. So that's what we do. And then with different techniques while in hypnosis, we're able to, help to show that it's not a relevant belief anymore. It may have been as a child, but it's no longer relevant. So that's really how we do the work.
Hmm. Very interesting,
Mhm.
very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, hmm. So in your we're going to switch gears a bit here. In
Okay.
your entrepreneur journey and building your business, what would you say has been your biggest challenge, and how have you confronted and solved that?
Okay, so I think that one of my biggest challenges is my tendency to try to do everything myself.
Mm,
And I'm still working through that, but I'm much better than I used to be. So part of the online business is part of it is posting on social media.
yes.
And I knew that I really was not comfortable doing that, but I kept trying to make myself do it. And I finally just had to say, you know what, this is not me, but it's an important part of being seen. So I hired a social media manager to do some posting for me. So I think the tendency to try to do too much myself,
Uh-huh.
that definitely uh, that definitely gets in the way of really using my talents to the best of my ability.
Got it.
And the other thing is there are so many opportunities to learn, to think about how do I want to get exposure for my business, speaking, uh, podcasting.
Uh-huh.
They tell you to write a book. I mean, so there's all these different things that can suck your time.
Right.
So really trying to get focused on what it is I want to do, what it is I want to really focus on in terms of trying to really get the coaching business, get the exposure for the coaching business. Those
Got
have been
it.
the challenges that I continue to work through.
Got it. Got it. That is very real, especially for entrepreneurs because we start off having to wear all the hats. So it can be a tough transition to move into, okay, I need to outsource this particular part of my business or this particular task to stay successful because it gets to a point where you can't do it all. So when you
Right.
start out, maybe because you're starting small, you're able to slice your time and not only able to, but you have to kind of figure out how to slice your time and get it all done. But as you are
Hmm.
growing, or even as
Hmm.
you plan to grow, you start to realize where if I'm going to be handling this, okay, if I got this many more clients, right, then who's going to do all that other stuff I was doing by myself? And so sometimes it could be a trust issue, like only
Hmm.
I can do it right, or it can just
Okay.
be a breaking that habit of doing it
Hmm.
all yourself.
Hmm.
That can be part of it too. Some of us struggle with that, breaking that habit until something happens where we have to. Then we're like, why did it take me this long to choose that?
Exactly. Exactly. And that can be a limiting belief that I
Yes,
have to do it myself, you
definitely.
know.
Nobody else is going to do it right but me,
Right. Right.
or nobody else wants to help me, So I
Yes.
always just got to do it all myself.
Hmm.
Have you had any mentors along your business journey?
So yes, I mean I have a coach who is very helpful. And she definitely, she's one of the people that really pushed me to, okay, if you're not going to do it yourself, then you need to hire somebody. Um, I've been in a couple uh, coaching kind of collectives.
Mhm.
I think that right now I am continuing to look for some women who are going to take me to another level. So,
Okay,
it's kind of looking around and figuring out who my people are and who are the people that are going to stretch me. So,
got it.
yes.
Got it. Wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful. So when you look at your business today, have you sat down and written out goals for your next 3 years, your next 5 years, or do you just play it by ear?
So I have not written out goals for 3 years or 5 years, and I am not great with goal setting. That is something that I am working on right now.
Okay.
And I'm also working on doing some time blocking on my calendar because I'll do it for a little bit
Uh-huh.
and then I'll slip into the old habit of not. And I'm still seeing patients. I'm still running my psychiatry practice, so it
Uh-huh.
is really a very challenging balancing act for me. But so right now I've got a goal of how many clients, coaching clients I want to get, and I'm thinking about those things and thinking about the models for how I'm going to service folks.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, mhm.
What would you say is your superpower?
Hmm. Well, so one of my superpowers, my dimples, because my smile tends to
Make other
make
people
people
smile.
comfortable.
It's
So
contagious.
yeah, I think typically I tend to put people at ease, and I mean I love talking to people, and I think people tend to feel comfortable around me. So I think that is one of the things that definitely works in my favor. And I love people. So I guess that's one of my superpowers.
Nice. Was there anything in your childhood that you can think of that informed what you're doing now? Like some of us, we have a something that happens or something that we're attracted to that kind of converts into what we do in
Mhm,
adulthood. Hood.
mhm,
Sometimes we don't. So I'm interested. Was there
mhm.
something in your childhood that informs what you're currently doing?
So I think one reason why I wanted to be a doctor and went to medical school, my family had an African American doctor. So I am sure the fact that I
Uh-huh.
saw his example, it just really showed me, okay, that's something that I can do. So
Mm.
I'm sure that was a big part of it. And I've wanted to help people. Um, the Lord has been good to me, has blessed me, and I definitely have always wanted to do something that is helpful to people.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, as a Black woman entrepreneur, what would you say you found to be your greatest resource? So, a resource that you've used that's really helped you in your business.
I think that a resource for me has just been reaching out, finding other Black women entrepreneurs who are um, willing to share their expertise, willing to um, willing to just kind of be there with you
Hmm.
because it's hard. I mean,
Yes.
it's really hard, and it's
Hmm.
very different from running my psychiatry practice where patients came to me. I had a
Right.
website. I was on Psychology Today, and I took insurance, so there was always plenty of patients. Getting clients is a whole different matter. So just being able to talk to folks who can at least help keep you propped up when when things are tough. So yes. Mhm.
Nice. And where have you, what have been some of the places that you found those relationships or that community?
So off and on, I've been in a group in a collective that Dr. Jetta Robinson has run, and she is. In addition to having a huge group practice, she is an income strategist, and she
Ah,
really helps therapists figure out how to pull together multiple streams of income
oh,
because it's really tough just to make it as a therapist, especially if you have an insurance practice. It's just getting harder and harder to make it. So
got it.
just kind of being in her orbit has given me some ideas, has given me some relationships. So she's definitely one of the people uh, that I benefit from being around her. I recently read a book by Rachel Rodgers, We Should All Be Millionaires.
Ah,
So I joined her club Hello Seven, and I just joined, so I'm not yet really immersed in it. But she tells you how to make money,
Okay.
and it's a collective. I mean, you keep using that word collective, but it's a group of women who are making money, and
Okay.
we need to be able to make some money and feel good about it,
Exactly.
and not have
Exactly.
any bones about it. So, mhm,
Wonderful. I love that. I love that you found those communities. One, you found a community that's within your profession. So someone who's done what you're doing, able
mhm,
to expose you to multiple income flows and how to think about that
mhm,
process. And then
mhm,
just straight someone who's encouraging you to be a millionaire. So seeking out those resources and to your point, something you mentioned earlier, being within a circle of women who push you to go further, like they're on another level. So you are motivated to work to get up to that same level.
mhm.
So wonderful, wonderful. Love that for you. So it's been a blast talking with you today. We've learned so much about RTT, the different types of talk therapy, the things that could be keeping us stuck or keeping us constantly striving and unsatisfied, and we're not aware that it's a limiting belief. So I
Mhm.
hope my listeners heard some signals and some points that would make them think and say, I need to go talk to someone about this. That sounds like what I'm going through. So thank you so much for sharing that knowledge and your expertise with us today. And we always like to ask our guests a couple of fun questions at the end. So I'm going to start with
Uh-oh.
those with you now. The first one is going to be, who was your favorite teacher and why?
Hmm. My favorite teacher was Miss Massimilla, and I think it was my third grade teacher. She
Ah,
was just sweet and always had a smile on her face and just made you feel good, made you feel like she was happy to see you.
nice, nice. What was your favorite childhood game?
Hmm. Oh wow, that is a tough one. Well, I mean, I liked checkers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say checkers. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, I'll say checkers.
Okay, wonderful. If you could have a conversation with anyone from the past, who would you choose and why?
Hmm. So from the past, it doesn't have to be distant past.
No,
Anybody?
anybody.
So I would like to speak with Octavia Butler because her writing, I mean, when you look at things now, it's prophetic. So just the Afrofuturism, um, I would just like to speak with her and just pick her brain,
Pick your brain.
just
Yeah.
how she thinks or how she
Yes.
thought. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, that's a good one. Okay, let's see. What is your either your favorite place to travel to or your dream place to travel to? So
Hmm.
somewhere you've been or somewhere you want to go.
Well, I want to go to Egypt
Nice.
and I want to go to Kenya. I've been to Ghana.
Ah,
This past March, we went to Ghana, and that was amazing. My first time to Africa, and I recommend all Black people go to Africa. But
mhm.
I have friends who are Kenyan, so I definitely want to visit Kenya. and play
Nice.
some golf in Kenya. So,
Nice, nice. Okay. And the final question is, what is your favorite meal or favorite food?
these are some tough questions, Lynette. Let me see. Oh, my favorite food. Well, I don't know that I have a favorite food. I really do I make pulled pork,
Okay.
and it is just savory and yummy, and
Uh-huh.
it just feels good in the wintertime. So that's
Oh,
one of my favorite
okay.
meals.
All right. Very nice, very nice. So again, Dr. Kimberly Walker, thank you so much for being with us today. I enjoyed the time with you, all the great information. And as always, we want to wish you the very best of joy, health, and wealth in your journey.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynette.